shout out to Sturdy, because Sturdy has been wanting me to react to this shit for like probably about a month now.
So I don't know what it is with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Maybe his game ain't pretty enough for you guys. But this is a guy who scores the ball at will, regular season and playoffs, creates some of the most wide open threes for his teammates in the NBA.
Sure.
But because he doesn't do it with no look passes or something, I guess it doesn't mean anything. And he's also able to play defense at a higher level than number 15 could ever dream of. But you guys don't care about defense. And it's cool. You guys show time and time again.
I think part of the reason that Giannis gets overlooked for his excellence is a couple things. I think one, it's lack of appreciation for consistency. I think throughout NBA history, a lot of players, LeBron, KD to a certain extent, Steph on the latter side of his prime. When it comes to players that play at a certain level and they're able to maintain that level for a long period of time, it's easy for you to start to take for granted what they provide and treat it like there's some level of normalcy to that. Also, his lack of postseason success had to be taken into account. I think him getting hurt for the last couple of seasons outside of obviously last year, I think 23 and 24 specifically, him not being able to see a deep postseason run because he was not available. I think that is also what has taken him out of the race per se. But another part of it, and I think this is underrated and people don't speak about it, the constant miscontextualization of his skill set. What happened in 24 season? People were putting defensive expectations on him, thinking that he was an all-world defender, top 5 defender still, when his defensive impact wasn't of that level that people expected. So people naturally just started to lower him, when in actuality, he was still just as dominant as he was in the 23, 22, 21 season. But because he was not providing the exact defensive skill set that you were praising him for, all of a sudden now you downgrade him, when in actuality, that wasn't who he was at that time period.
Because that Denver Nuggets offense that everyone glazes based on number 15 isn't unfallible in the playoffs. I've seen them have bad playoff series.
I don't know any player.
If we're
to be
talking
fair,
about
I don't know any offensive player or offense that
matter.
maintained every playoff run, by the way.
It's not about maintaining. It's about not being below average or mid. If we're talking about GOAT level offensive players, the amount of series that the Denver Nuggets have gone through where they've been mediocre offensively, for someone who's a bad defender as well, should hurt him in this context.
Woo! Mara's cooking. Mara's cooking, boy. Boy, he is cooking. I understand the gripes that people have with Giannis to a certain extent when it comes to his availability. But when we hang our hat on the offensive spectrum for Nikola Jokic, y'all do realize the expectations you're placing on him, right? Like, I wonder if you guys really understand what you're saying when you say he's so good offensively that it supersedes what he's severely lacking on the defensive end. I hope y'all understand that. And then have a severe drop-off in the postseason. That also means that his offense didn't translate. So then at that point, what is your argument now? Jokic against the Oklahoma City Thunder had an offensive rating of 104.4, which compared to what he had in the regular season that year was like 15 points below. And for some of y'all that might say,
Nikola Jokic was going against an all-time defensive unit in OKC.
Well, he went up against just a good to great defensive unit in the Clippers, and he still didn't perform to his regular season measures then either. Mind you, in both of these series, he's still giving up a lot on the defensive end. So at that point, what exactly are you, if you're Nikola Jokic, providing that garners the respect of still being the best player in the world?
Last year, they were 15 points better defensively with Jokic on the court on the court last year. Were they not?
Plus what? Say that one more time.
They were 15 points better.
Take your word. I don't know.
Yes, they were 15 points better with Jokic on the floor last year. They were minus 30 with him off the floor last year.
To be quite honest with you, Chad, I want to say that he's using per 100 stats. Looking at like actual offensive rating on and off in the postseason for Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, it was a 111.7 offensive rating with him on the court, and it was a 101.3. Still a substantial gap, right? There's like 10 on the offensive rating scale. But even still, what does this have to do with the best in the world conversation? Because as much as he could point to that, Giannis has the exact same argument last season as well. For the 188 minutes that Giannis played in that Indiana series in the first round, they had an offensive rating of 117.3. When he was off of the floor, they were scraping and clawing to get to 99.2 to be exact in the 57 minutes that Giannis wasn't on the floor. So at like the same arguments that you're making for Jokic, the exact same thing could be pointed towards Giannis. Nobody up there is asking Swiper to hold the same standard, point to the same stats for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I promise you, it would show that yet again, the gap between the two is not wide, and actually the arguments that he's making is actually pointing more towards Giannis than it is towards Jokic, and he went into the postseason and translated just fine.
Last year was a prime example of them struggling. I think if you look at the Minnesota series, remember, you got to also equate the fact there were blowouts in game 2, there were blowouts in game 7 last year. I'm talking about last year versus the Thunder. Okay. Blowouts in game 2, blowouts in game 7 that are going to skew a lot of those numbers. So like,
before I say what I'm thinking, because I think I know what he's doing right now. And if he's doing what I think he's doing, this is some nasty shit right now. But let me rewind real quick so that I could be able to make sure I'm hearing what I'm hearing right now.
So I do think there is a legitimate argument to be made that versus these elite high-level defenses last year, especially with like slanted rosters that had injuries to it, that were not as deep as we know they were supposed to be, all that stuff. Last year was a prime example of them struggling. I think if you look at the Minnesota series, remember, you got to also equate the fact there were blowouts in game 2. There were blowouts in game 7 last year. I'm talking about last year versus the Thunder.
Oh, so he is doing what I think he's doing. Chat. Okay, this nigga is nasty. So what he's basically saying is the impact that was missing from Jokic's offensive excellence had more to do with injuries, lack of actual presence on the court, like viable scoring options consistently on the floor against these defensive units. And he's saying because of that, Jokic could only do so much. The problem with that is Giannis had the same problem. He was without Dame, nigga. Problem again that I'm having with what this nigga is saying is the exact same thing you're saying for Jokic. It can point directly towards Giannis. Giannis is having to take on more of a load offensively while still maintaining defensive integrity, because in the Indiana series, Indiana had pulled Brook Lopez out so much so that Doc Rivers had to pull Brook Lopez from the series altogether, and Giannis was asked to be the sole rim protector. So then Indiana just started pulling Giannis out of the paint to cover the perimeter. So at what point is somebody going to tell him you're not making a case at all? You're just pointing out things for Jokic that can also be pointed out for Giannis. And then for you to try to say that it was blowout in game 2 and 7. Part of the reason that it was a blowout in game 2 and 7 was because they were taking advantage of Jokic. In games 2 and 7, OKC is quite literally putting Jokic out of position so that they could be able to attack the rim. They're creating transition off of turnovers that are sourcing from Jokic. That's why Jokic had 31 turnovers in that series. What the fuck is he talking about?
Is that he in that series, you're saying scheme proof. He had to learn from game 2 to game 4. He shot bad. And a part of that in March, this is a part of his issue. This part of the issue that happened in that series. I agree. He should have made the shots.
No. It's not just about the fact that he was missing shots. He should have made the shot. No, the problem was the fact that he turned into more of a perimeter-oriented scorer and facilitator down the stretch of games against yet again another elite defense. Actually, OKC, I will grant, it is an all-time level defense. Harping on this series, actually, it's a safety net for him because he could just say that it's an all-time level defense. That Minnesota Timberwolves defense that he went up against, that turned him into a three-point shooter for the second game of that series, and it happened to be a game 7, that ain't no all-time level defense. That was just a defense that was set and built for Giannis. And this is the ultimate issue. This is the crux of the problem that I have with this gentleman Swiper and any of them niggas that be caping for Jokic. It is fine to admit that the nigga has series where he's not performing at the same level of the all-time niggas that he's being compared to during the times he's up. It happened. But the fact that y'all be pointing to these wild ass fun facts, nigga, you're tap dancing. The craziest part is whenever somebody points out to Giannis's traits, the good and the bad, and the fact that he's been unavailable for like 2 out of the last 3 postseasons, it gets accepted. It gets acknowledged. There's no context that needs to be added to that. He's not there. That's it. But whenever it comes to Nikola Jokic, we have to be mathematicians. He got clamped up by 6'4" guard and Caruso. But he had an amazing first half, remember? He had an amazing first half, and then he sat out, and then Russell Westbrook turned the ball over, and Jamal Murray couldn't do anything, and Michael Porter Jr. had that bad shoulder, remember? Gotta add all of these things up. Offensive ratings, on-off numbers. We gotta point to them, PRs and them VORPs. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But real talk, also, this is also verifiable. If you track the 3 best scoring games in the last 20 plus years, Automatic put a whole graphic up about this. From game 5, 6, and 7. He had one of the 3 greatest scoring peaks we've seen since 2000. Yes. And so when game 5,
7?
Game 7, yes. Remember, game 7 included, he had 20 on like 71 or whatever in that game. Yes.
We're literally actively in a season where we've already seen that the stats don't necessarily translate to actual impact. So the fact that this nigga is mentioning this, and we saw in game 1, the nigga missed a 3 and they get blown by Curry, not even giving a damn, to seal the game. Mathematicians, bro. Mathematicians. And then the ironic part about all of this is he got the nerve to talk about my team after we beat the Golden State Warriors last night, knowing damn well he don't know shit of what's going on with us.
To that level, I just don't think.
Why though, Swiper? Because I mean, you would say
I'm just saying I don't look at the roster. I don't look at the coaching. I'm just not taking them. I'm just not taking away with it yet. Maybe, but again, maybe that changes. Maybe it changes. I could be wrong.
in that offense. I feel like Gary. I feel like being a viable playoff team right now. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about.
I'm asking, did you watch the entirety of the game yesterday? That's what I'm saying. Like, they play well, but I'm also just like, bro, like, just no way, bro. Your entire game plan changes when Giannis isn't in the game. And again, they play well, but more, I'm just not saying like
Imagine that.
I know, but like,
I am not exaggerating with this. I only had to scroll probably about for like 3 minutes through Players' Choices video catalog, and I got to a year ago, and only 4 games in, this nigga had already predicted the Denver Nuggets was gonna have a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense.
We getting back to the slate from last night. We talked about this game a lot, but the Nuggets beat the Nets in overtime, 144 to 139.
He had one of the only stat lines ever. Him and Oscar talking about a lot. The dominance. I think the 4-quarter clutch stuff. All that stuff is going to be there. I think the defense is probably going. I would say, Mars. I think their defense will be top 8 again this year. I think their offense might be like 10th, maybe 11th. I don't know how it's going to like, play out for the course of the year.
Best
but
offensive player and number 10 offense.
Mind you, nigga that gave up 139 for Brooklyn. What the fuck is he talking about?
So what happened is, it's real talk. In game 1, he had 42, 22, and 6, and 18 points in the 4th quarter.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. There's only 2 40-point games that OKC had against them the entirety of last year, of the regular season and playoffs, and Jokic had 2 of them.
Now this nigga is just mentioning fun facts so that he could be able to like make it seem like it was more impressive than it actually was. While he's doing those 2 games of dropping 40, he's failing to shoot over 38% 3 times out of that series. He's failing to not turn over the ball more than 5 times 4 games out of that series. One of them being the closeout game. My main issue when it comes to this Giannis, Nikola Jokic shit is we can't have a genuine conversation about these players' skill set, because everything needs to come down to what makes this player better than the other, when in actuality it really just comes down to preference. You do not have to be disingenuous to let somebody know that your pick is this player and that pick can be valid. You don't have to do that. I also caught that bullshit you said earlier talking about how
It's fair to say the Nuggets have gone through much tougher defense than the Milwaukee Bucks.
Newsflash, the reason why Milwaukee can't say that they have gone up against as many defensive units is because they are the defensive unit. the defenses that they would go against doesn't measure up to them because they're the standard. What the fuck are you talking about? All right, bro, I'm finna wrap up this video. This nigga just pissed me off.